It's also a very sad day for Australia. There are few things more synonymous with calling Australia home than Qantas Airways. This is the worst day for aviation people since the collapse of ANZIT.
Of our long-term competitive advantage. Our customers are at the heart of what we do. I know how satisfied our customers are with their service and product. Our research tells us that, our customers tell us that, and we've reached record levels of advocacy. That won't change. Indeed, we're going to continue to invest to improve that. We'll continue our A330 reconfiguration project to deliver the best-in-class experience on our domestic and international product. Wonderful new lounges will open up over the next few months in Hong Kong and Los Angeles to complement the success of our Singapore lounge. We'll maintain our customer service training and business-wide commitment to excellence in both Qantas and in Jetstar. And we'll continue to strengthen Qantas loyalty for our customers. Quite simply, Qantas will remain the best premium domestic carrier in the world and a top-tier international carrier. Jetstar will remain the leading low-fares airline in Australia in all the markets that it services. And our domestic strategy has not changed. We remain absolutely committed to maintaining that strength of our two-brand position in the domestic market, and we'll be maintaining our network, product, and frequency share advantage in the premium market and our scale advantage in the leisure market. We do not step back from our commitment to keep Qantas and Jetstar the most profitable and successful domestic carriers. Finally, let me say this. There are many examples of Australian companies that have failed because they have not been prepared to make the hard decisions. Qantas is not one of them. Over a 93-year history, Qantas has a reputation of resilience and adaptation. We have survived through wars, we've survived through crisis, we've survived through boom, we've survived through bust. And over the past 5 years, we've shown yet again that we can take the tough decisions to adapt to a changing world. We are now enduring some of the toughest decisions and some of the toughest conditions that we've ever had to face. We're doing what is right and what is necessary. We'll draw upon the deep resources that this company has. We have a young fleet, a state-of-the-art product, technology and service. We have a superior on-time performance and customer satisfaction ratings. We have two outstanding brands in Qantas and Jetstar, plus a frequent flyer program which is going from strength to strength. And most of all, are people who are skilled, committed and passionate about Qantas. At the end of this transformation, the Qantas Group will be still an employer of more than 27,000 Australians. The vast majority of people and jobs in this group we're aiming to protect. Qantas will still be one of the world's great airlines, recognising and rewarding its loyal customers, and Qantas will still be a strategic asset to Australia. We'll be representing the best of Australia at home in the world, caring for Australians in time of natural disaster and crisis, and sharing the spirit of Australia from rural and regional Australia to our cities around the world. We must, and we are, making the hard but necessary decisions that will protect this great company and ensure its return to profitable and sustainable future. Thank you. We may open it to questions now. First question, Ross.
Alan, just can you tell us, has there been any discussion with the board about your own position as Chief Executive of Qantas, and also in regards to the loss that the shareholders clearly are going to have to bear in some way, shape or form? Does that have any impact on your ongoing commitment and or contract with Qantas?
I'm absolutely committed to Qantas. Going forward, we believe that obviously the circumstances that Qantas faces today are very difficult. We have the capacity situation internationally and domestically that's adding to significant losses to our international business in particular. But we have a plan to fix that problem, a plan that covers every aspect of the changes that we need to make in the business to get it back to profitability. And we have the courage and commitment as a management team to make that happen. And we have the board, the management, fully behind the plan going forward and fully committed to turning this business around. Yes, next question. Sorry, I've got a few lights in my, maybe that gentleman there in the corner.
Hi there, Alan. I think we were hoping that the international result would be one of the better results after what you did with Emirates last year, but it's a pretty heavy loss. I was wondering if you could help explain a little bit more about why that's not meeting some of what people expected from that.
Yeah, I'll start with it, and I might ask Gareth to contribute to this. There's a couple of factors that are there. There's been a 9% growth in capacity coming in and out of Australia, particularly capacity added to Southeast Asia and to the European markets, which have resulted in a significant yield decrease of over 4% on our international business. We've also, because of record high fuel prices, the longer the sectors, which is the case in international, the bigger the impact that we've had from fuel, and we've had a significant rise in costs on the fuel side. I have to say, though, as I mentioned in the speech, the Emirates Alliance is getting a great reaction. It's made a big difference to our European operations, but the overwhelming capacity growth and the impact of fuel has meant that that business performance has gone slightly south. Has gone south. Gareth, do you want to?
Yeah, I think you've covered most of it there. I think the other point we'd make is that the unit cost performance in international was down by 4%, so we continue to take the cost down, but not at a rate fast enough to offset the yield decline, which is being exacerbated or driven by the significant levels of capacity growth that are being poured into Australia by overseas carriers.
Yeah, over here.
Hi, Alan. I just have two questions. The first is just on the international business. Do you still have a target of returning it to profitability by the end of the 2015 financial year? And just secondly, why would you want to raise domestic capacity by 3 to 4% in the second half, given that there's already an oversupply of capacity in the domestic market?
I'll go for the first one. We've always said in relation to the international business that it could be subject to tailwinds or headwinds that could impact on our ability to deliver that profitability target. And unfortunately, the exchange rate, the high fuel price, the changes in capacity that's been added by our competitors have, as I said, impacted that business quite significantly, and the business will not be producing a profit that as we had originally planned. We are, though, when we look at the changes that we have in our plan, taking significant costs out of all of our business, but particularly international, and the changes that we announced here today of the retirement of the older 747s, and the use of the A330s on those international Asian markets, the increase in utilisation that we'll get out of the A380 fleet will all help improve the international business performance going forward. And we're confident that we'll see, with this plan, a significant improvement in its performance. In terms of the domestic market, we are very clearly protecting our position in the domestic market. We, as I mentioned in the speech, have the only profitable carriers operating in the domestic operation today. We haven't added as much capacity as our competitors have over the last few years. They're absolutely employing the position of adding capacity, even though they are losing a significant amount of money and their strategy is loss-making. But the reason why Qantas is successful domestically is that it has a frequency and network advantage, it has a product advantage, it has a service advantage. It is a carrier that has typically outperformed the competition now for over a decade because it's maintained those advantages. It would be amiss of us to weaken that product in any way, and we are committed to making sure that it has the best product for the business market. Similarly, on the leisure end of the market, the reason why Jetstar is outperforming its competitors is because it's got the scale advantage. it's got the recognition advantage, and as a consequence, it has a cost-based advantage and a revenue premium over its competitions. Again, we would be amiss if we didn't manage and keep those advantages going forward. So our domestic strategy has always been very clear. Sometimes people simplify it. It is more complicated than some of the simple commentary that's been out there. And it's because of that strategy that we still maintain profitability domestically and significantly outperform our competitors. Yes? Steve? Oh, we got one here.
Mr. Joyce, two questions. First of all, do you think today's announcements and cuts and changes to the strategy is going to be enough to get the government to give you assistance in either the form of changing the Sales Act or a debt guarantee? And secondly, could you explain to the 5,000 workers or more who are about to lose their jobs why you've chosen Sydney's most expensive hotel, the West End, in which to hold this event and not at your brand new Mascot campus, which would accommodate this?
So let me cover the first part. We're continuing in dialogue with the government. We said, and again I said in the speech here to be absolutely clear, that the plan we have is the plan that's needed in order to turn around the business, irrespective of the government involvement or what the government decides to do. This plan is needed in order to address the unacceptable performance of our airline businesses. This plan is needed in order to make sure that we have a capital requirement going forward that doesn't exceed the operating cash flows of the business. So this plan is needed irrespective of what happens with government. The dialogue with government has been well communicated, has been well broadcast. That will continue, and we continue with them today. In terms of where we do these press conferences, we've typically done these press conferences here in the city. It is easier for, you see the amount of interest that we have here, and accommodating this level of press, this level of interest, and accommodating the analysts and the shareholders that want to speak to us and the level of interest we have. This is the best facility to do that. Next question. Steve?
Oh, hi, Alan. You talked in your speech about modernising work practices. What are you looking at in that extent, and what sort of reception do you expect from the unions to that and to the job losses? And also, in terms of the domestic capacity, have you got any projections for when you see this domestic capacity sort of demand sort of equaling out?
Yeah, I suppose the first thing, there are changes. We have been over the last 4 or 5 years, for a long time, Steve, as you know, changing the way we do a lot of things in the business. As you can see from this announcements today, we are renewing the fleet at a rapid rate. The fleet age is the youngest it's been since privatisation, under 8 years of age. That significant change in technology means that work practices have to change. The way we've been doing maintenance, the way we've been doing a lot of activity around the aircraft is changing. We previously announced the closure of our heavy maintenance facilities in Tullamarine, which closed last year, and Avalon that will close at the end of this month. Because of those changes, aircraft need less maintenance. When they need less maintenance, you need less people to do that maintenance. You do the maintenance in very different ways. They are the changes to work practices that we're implementing. We've also been using new technology in check-in, new technology in way we do head office and background support for our people, and they mean changes in jobs, changes in support, changes in how we manage the business. So it is very much across the board. I think, you know, certainly with our employees, there is recognition out there that the company has significant issues, that the company is underperforming, and that their changes are needed, and that we do need to adapt to the current environment, which is a challenge for us as a business. And I've no doubt that that message is getting through. And we are meeting the unions tomorrow, as I mentioned, to talk through the details of what this plan is, to talk through what we're trying to achieve, and to get the union reaction to where we stand. Yeah. Mark?
Mr. Joyce, $2 billion in savings, 5,000 jobs to go, 50 planes retired. How will customers, do you think, notice the differences with this new leaner Qantas?
What we are still doing here, Mark, is investing in the customer. As I mentioned, the investment in new aircraft still continues. We are going to be retiring the older aircraft in the fleet, the old 747s, the 767s, the 734s. So customers will see newer aircraft operating across the Qantas domestic and international network. We're investing in product, the live flat beds on the A330s, which is a product enhancement for the East-West operations and the Asian operations. That continues, and that investment continues. We're opening new lounges in LA and in Hong Kong. Now, the reason why we're doing that is the customer is extremely important to us. We have a cost problem that we have to address, but we can't have a revenue problem. We need to continue to invest in getting customer satisfaction improving, making sure that customers stay with Qantas and attracting customers back. And what we do on product, what we do on network, what we do with our partners is all key to that, and that's also part of this plan going forward. Yes. Over here.
Hi, Alan. You talked about the international aspect and the problems being partly due to the increase in capacity. That's not going to change. So therefore, even if you continue to reduce costs, aren't you going to continue to face the same problem? You also talked about the fact that the Emirates deal had a very good impact on your European business. Can you talk about, though, what it's meant to your Asian business and the loss of passenger numbers there, particularly flying into places like Singapore?
Look, I think we absolutely recognise the reality of competition in this industry, and so we recognise that is something that's not going to abate. We have to be able to control what we can control as an organisation, and one thing we clearly can control is our fleet and our cost base and our partnerships, and the strategy for international is all about those three. So we have to get our costs down to become more competitive, and we've got a wide-ranging cost program. The $2 billion covers the whole organisation, and a significant proportion of that will manifest itself in the international business. We've also been on a journey simplifying our fleet, reducing the fleet age, and fleet simplification. A smaller number of aircraft types in a smaller number of configurations drives a significant amount of simplification and cost reduction into the business, and it's taken a long time for us to get there because of aircraft delays along the way, and we're getting there. We're almost there. The refleeting of the business is nearly complete, and that will help drive efficiencies and reduce costs. And then we have to make sure we have the right partners in the right markets. Emirates is clearly the right partner for us to Europe. The customers are telling us that, and the economics is telling us that. And it has enabled us to restructure our Asian network to focus more on point-to-point and focus on retiming those flights to when customers want to fly to Asia. Now, we always said at the time we did that was going to take some time to grow into, and that is happening. It is taking some time to grow into. We always expected that, but we are very, very confident that as we move forward, we're going to see that new reshaped Asian network drive benefits for us, and along with the cost reductions that we're focused on.
Next question. Over here.
Mr. Joyce, on the wage freeze, what proportion of your workforce can you immediately move on to the wage freeze, and what proportion are on current enterprise agreements? And secondly, with that second lot, how are you going to avoid the problem that Toyota had, where they went to their workforce, wanted to change their enterprise agreement and were rebuffed?
So we're going to be working through, which you're absolutely right, there's different complexities in EBAs that are open and EBAs that are currently closed. Qantas has, I think, 54 different EBAs across 14 different union groups. Some of which are open today, which our pay policy going forward will be no pay increases until the company makes money. And then the EBAs that are closed, we'll be talking to those unions directly, and in some cases waiting until the EBA opens up and then applying it. We'll make sure that at the end of the process that we have addressed all of the areas and have quality across all parts of the group, and this applies to all parts of the group. Yes, over here. That gentleman.
Hey there, just a couple of things. Both John Borghetti and John Sharp from Rex have made the argument that if there is any sort of debt guarantee, it should apply to the whole industry. Do you agree with that? And if not, why not? And just one other thing. Around Jetstar Asia, the freeze there, I mean, your competitors are expanding quite rapidly in the Southeast Asian low-cost carrier market. Is this a recognition that it's too tough in that market now?
Well, I think both sides, first to your first question first, I think both sides of politics recognise that there is an unlevel playing field. They recognise that the Qantas Sale Act shackles Qantas, and that doesn't apply to any other players in the industry. I think the Treasurer actually had four different principles that apply to governments getting involved with businesses and industries. He said, first of all, is there an act or piece of legislation that uniquely applies to the company and acts as a ball and chain? I think some of the references were, and clearly with Qantas that's the case. He said, secondly, is a company competing against SOEs, state-owned enterprises, that are distorting the market? And again, clearly with Qantas, that's the case. Our international competition and now our major domestic competition is supported by SOEs. Thirdly, is there a national interest? And Qantas is the national carrier, has a huge national footprint, has a huge national interest, strategic for this country. So clearly Qantas ticks that box. And then the fourth one is clearly the company doing what it can to make sure that it manages its own affairs. We are clearly, over the last 5 years, making big inroads into our cost base. We have to do more, and today's plan clearly indicates that we are doing more. So on your second part of your question? Jetstar in Asia. Jetstar in Asia for us, we have to, as we said, make tough decisions across the individual group and make sure we prioritise the core of our operation. Jetstar in Asia has still to bed down its growth in Japan, its other activities in Vietnam and Hong Kong. And in Southeast Asia and Singapore in particular, we've seen huge growth in capacity by the competition that has strained the profitability of that business. We believe with all of the priorities around the group, the appropriate thing is to stop the growth in that business, and the board of Jetstar Asia have agreed to stop the growth in that business and consolidate our resources and activity on the other areas in the group that have a priority. Yeah.
Alan, you're retiring a bunch of 747s early, and you're deferring eight new A380s. Is that going to mean that you're going to have to... Where are those 747s flying at the moment? And does that mean you're going to contract your international network?
Okay.
I think, as I said to an earlier question, this is a lot of this is facilitated by fleet simplification and the coming together of the fleet plan that's been planned over a long period of time. Those 747s, the oldest, 6 of them, we've accelerated the retirement. And we're going to be making some changes to the international network that free up some A380 aircraft. But also, as the 787s come into Jetstar, they're freeing up A330s, and those A330s will fly both domestically and internationally. So we will end up with a fleet for Qantas that has 737s and A330-200s flying domestically, and A380s, young 747s, and A330-300s flying internationally. So we will have a much simpler fleet, a much more efficient fleet, a young fleet with great product on it, and that will help drive efficiencies and the right network for that part of the business.
Other questions? Yep.
Alan, could we go back and have a quick look at the job losses? You've talked about management, non-operational roles, maintenance and catering. What other skills are you targeting to lose? And will it include pilots and flight attendants?
Well, of course, what we're saying is every aspect of the company gets impacted by this, because there is less flying. We're changing the network. We're changing the size of aircraft operating on certain routes. that means less operating crew, pilots and cabin crew needed across those changes in that part of the operation. So every part of the business gets impacted by this. What we are doing and the principles that we are employing on this is that obviously safety is going to be our #1 priority in everything that we do. Secondly, we have a focus on making sure that the customer and the customer needs are satisfied all the way through this. And thirdly, we are protecting as many jobs as we possibly can with the changes that we're making. We do believe that there are parts of the business, like as we mentioned, Perth Singapore, that are losing significant amounts of money that we have to withdraw from, and changes that we have to make in aircraft like the 747s, which are older aircraft, consuming a lot more fuel, and we've brought forward the retirement of them. Unfortunately, they do have an impact on employees in all parts of the company when those changes are made. Yeah.
Alan, the government said it's legislating to make change to the Qantas Sale Act. How optimistic are you that that will get through, and what impact will that have on Qantas?
Well, to be very clear, I mean, the Qantas Sale Act, I think even the Deputy Prime Minister made a comment in early January when he's acting Prime Minister and said it was going to be difficult to see that getting through the Parliament. It needs to get through, changes to that need to get through the lower house and the upper house. Certainly the Labour Party and the Greens are not in support of it, so it needs a change of the Senate to even have a chance. And then I think Mr Palmer's party have also said they're not in support of it. So in the short term, we don't see any changes that are likely to occur on that. The issue for us, therefore, is how does the government level the playing field in the short term? The action is needed in the short term, and they need to take the appropriate action to make sure that the distortion that everybody clearly recognises doesn't continue. And the issue with the Qantas Sale Act is going to be the length of time. It could be months, it could be years before that act changes. That's it. Thank you very much, everybody.
Okay, so that was live from Sydney, the Qantas CEO Alan Joyce, after that announcement this morning of a $235 million half-year loss. Alan Joyce referring there to increased competition, particularly from Virgin, and increased fuel costs. So over the next 3 years, 5,000 jobs to go, the equivalent of 5,000 full-time jobs. There'll be including a reduction of management and non-operational roles by 1,500, and the closure of the Avalon maintenance base as previously announced. And there'll be a wage freeze for all Qantas employees until Qantas is profitable again. The plane fleet will be changed significantly, 50 aircraft to be deferred or sold over the coming years. The fleet will go from 11 aircraft types down to 7. A short time ago, Qantas shares were down 9.5%. OK, we'll leave that there. That was the Victorian Opposition Leader Daniel Andrews. I'm joined now from Melbourne by the Federal Secretary of the Australian Licensed Aircraft Engineers Association, Steve Purvinas. Steve Purvinas, a tough day for your members. Do you acknowledge, though, that Qantas is in an incredibly tough position and has to make some hard decisions?
Yeah, Qantas certainly are in a tough position, but it's not our members who put it there, it's the bloke in charge of the airline. I actually found it quite surreal listening to him sit there talk, and this is what he said in answer to the increased competition from overseas competitors. Other international carriers continue with a loss-making strategy. Well, it was only just today that Air New Zealand announced a record half-yearly profit. So he can talk about loss-making strategies, but it's actually Qantas are the ones that have got the strategy wrong.
OK, so putting aside for the moment your strong feelings about the performance of Alan Joyce, 5,000 jobs to go, 1,500 in management and non-operational roles. Yep. Are you the fact that so many are going in management and non-operational roles? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, Qantas certainly are a little bit top-heavy when it comes to management, but just on further information, because I know a lot of our members will be watching this, we have heard that 175 LAMEs, licensed aircraft engineers across the country, are also going to go with this. We believe that to be split 53 in Melbourne, about 65 in Sydney, and the others from the other bases. What kind of impact will that have? Look, we're hoping that we can meet with management next week and try and make some arrangements to minimise the impact of those job losses. Maybe it might be different rostering or leave burn programs. So we're hoping it can be as easy as possible on our members. Yeah. So just getting back to my first question, do you acknowledge that hard decisions have to be made? Yeah, look, Qantas certainly is struggling at the moment, but we've heard about 46% increase in capacity into the country, and Qantas have only increased their capacity by 2%. But the thing is, passenger numbers have increased by 46%. The whole strategy is askew. All the other carriers have increased to match the demand in the market, but Qantas haven't. So the economic position that Qantas find themselves in today is only their own doing.
Yeah. So is there any need for jobs to go as far as you're concerned, or should Qantas be expanding and trying to increase capacity?
Well, we talk about capacity growth. All the other carriers have increased capacity growth and jobs by 46%. Qantas are going the other way. You don't make money by contracting your business. And what we've seen today from Mr Joyce is pretty much the same strategy that's been in place for years. Retire some of the older aircraft that we're always going to retire anyway. Continue with those Jetstar Asian franchises that have never turned 1 cent of profit. So the real problem we have is that the course they are heading in is exactly the same as it was yesterday, and that's not working.
So is there a need for any of these 5,000 jobs to go?
Look, I can't comment yet until we've met with the airline about where and when the jobs may be leaving. I mean, if they're retiring 767 aircraft, they may be able to retire 767 pilots. However, they are also increasing A330 aircraft, so they may be able to swap and fly on a different plane. So you really need to know further details on the 5,000 before you can make any detailed comment on it.
Yeah, well, the details that he'd mentioned or that have been outlined in the Qantas media statement, so 1,500 in management and non-operational roles, and as you said, Qantas is, as far as you're concerned, a bit top-heavy with management. Operational positions affected by fleet and network changes. What do you understand that to be?
Yeah, that's like the retirement of 747 aircraft would mean less people, whether it be engineers, pilots, flight attendants that service those aircraft. But remember, they're being replaced by other aircraft as well. So, but overall the strategy is wrong. They should be increasing their fleets like every other airline, and most of the other airlines are profitable, not decreasing.
The other area that's identified in this media release is the restructure of line maintenance operations.
Yeah, the restructure of line maintenance operations is the 175 licensed engineers I've talked about already. So again, we've spoke with management yesterday, and we've scheduled a meeting in for early next week. So we'll get further details on that there, but that probably relates to the retirement of some of the aircraft as well.
Yeah, and it also includes, this 5,000 does include the closure of the Avalon maintenance base as previously announced. How many people did that involve?
Yeah, so the 5,000 included 1,000 job losses that have already been announced, which was 300 people who are going to lose their positions when the Avalon maintenance space closes on the 28th of March.
Okay, I will have to leave it there, Steve Pervenis. Thanks very much for that, because the Opposition Leader, Bill Shorten's stepping up.
Today is truly devastating news for 5,000 hard-working, professional, skilled Qantas staff and their families. It's also a very sad day for Australia. There are few things more synonymous with calling Australia home than Qantas Airways. This is the worst day for aviation people since the collapse of Ansett.